afternoon, friends. Can you hear me okay? No, that's down. Our gospel lesson today comes from Luke's gospel, chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, he has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner. Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much. Then Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost. The word of the Lord. So I cannot hear this story. I'm going to move this down just a little. It doesn't move down. Okay. So I cannot hear this story, as I'm sure many of you can.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
No. Without hearing the song in my head, that Sunday school song. I don't know if kids these days know that song or not. I don't know. I think we're gonna find out, because sing it with me if you know it. Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree, Lord he wanted to see. And when the Savior came his way, he looked up in that tree and he said, Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today. I was talking with the other members of the teaching team earlier this week about what was going to happen today and about how much I love that song, and they also said that they love that song. I don't remember every song that I learned in Sunday school, but I definitely remember that one. I think this story of Zacchaeus is relatable for kids, not just because of that very catchy song, but because of some of the facts of Zacchaeus' story are relatable for kids, or at least they were for me when I was a kid. One of the details of this story in Luke's gospel is that Zacchaeus was short. And when I was a kid, I was pretty short. I'm still not very tall. I'm like 5'5" now. But when I was a kid, I was like 3 feet tall. You know, I don't know. How tall? At some point, I was 3 feet tall for sure. So I think that's one of the reasons why the Zacchaeus story is relatable for children and former children, which includes all of us. Zacchaeus climbs a tree. And who here has climbed a tree? Okay, so it's an activity that you have early in life. Many of the minors or children present raised their hands that they had climbed a tree. Who here has paid their taxes? Okay, not so much. That seems to be more of an adult activity. So this is something else that's relatable about the story of Zacchaeus, is that it's something children have done, what Zacchaeus does. It's also just a catchy tune. It's probably going to be stuck in your head for the rest of the day. I'm sorry about that. But it's more than just a cute Sunday school story or a cute little song that gets stuck in your head. When Jesus told Zacchaeus that he was going to his house, the crowd of people gathered around there did not like it at all. They started to grumble. Why on earth was Jesus giving this jerk the time of day? Of all the places that Jesus could stay when he came to town, with that guy? They weren't just unhappy that Jesus was honoring a sinner. They were especially unhappy that it was Zacchaeus. This was personal. Zacchaeus was the chief tax collector. He was a big boss in the tax collecting scheme. He had a contract with the Romans to collect taxes, and they didn't care that much how he went about it. So he just had to collect enough money to satisfy the Romans, and he had to keep anything extra that he could get. So there was nothing to keep him from doing unpleasant things to get that money. And in Roman society, you don't sign up to be the chief tax collector because you just love working with numbers. As the chief tax collector, Zacchaeus didn't have to go door to door to collect money personally. He had henchmen who could do that for him. He just had to keep the money coming in. So I was actually driving back from Wisconsin, Dells this morning. I was thinking about the story of Zacchaeus and about some of the things that were maybe relatable for us, like being short and climbing trees, and some of the things that were maybe less relatable. Like I don't know how many of us are sort of chief henchmen for big nefarious organizations. I don't know what everyone here does, but I don't think that that part of the story of Zacchaeus is as relatable for people in this room. And I was trying to think as I drove through the beautiful fall colors of the driftless region of Wisconsin, it's gorgeous, about why this story of Zacchaeus sort of resonated so deeply, this moment where Zacchaeus, who we learn is short, wealthy, a chief tax collector, and a sinner. Those are sort of the things that stick out about him. So the first thing we hear about Zacchaeus that stands out is that he's short. And this is something about him that he can't change. I think all of us have something in our life about us, maybe physically, maybe about sort of how your brain is built, if it's not about how your body is built. Something about yourself that you can't change, that maybe sometimes makes it hard, makes it difficult to see Jesus in your life. For Zacchaeus, in this particular case, it was literally that he was short and he couldn't see over the crowd, so he had to climb up a tree. But I think about the other things in our life that make it difficult to see Jesus. And how maybe sometimes that might be things that we can't change, things that just happen to us, like illness, that can darken our days, or something like depression or anxiety that sort of hangs over you like a black cloud, and it's not something that you caused or you did or you asked for. It's just something like Zacchaeus's height that makes it difficult to see where God is at work in your life, to see what God is up to. So it could be something about our physical logistics of life, or something else about the circumstances. Maybe it's not a body or a mind thing, but something else about life that you didn't pick, that you didn't choose, that you can't change maybe, that makes it difficult to see God or to see what Jesus is up to. Another thing that we hear about Zacchaeus that I thought of as I was driving along is that he's wealthy. And I thought, well, this is kind of a different detail. Zacchaeus isn't the only wealthy person we run into in the Bible. There's a lot of critical things said about wealth in the Bible. But there's also people in the Bible who are just kind of born into wealth. Now, you could argue from like some standpoints that like, oh, all wealth would, include some unpleasantness in it coming, the sort of argument that if you have two coats, you've stolen one from the poor. But I think in Zacchaeus's case, and when we think about it sort of more broadly, or at least when I was thinking about it, like sometimes some children are born to wealthy parents. Or sometimes you're born into a more privileged place in the world than other places. And so it's sort of this thing, it's not completely something that that you did or didn't do, because it can also be something that comes, the way that Zacchaeus's wealth may have come through less than pleasant means, or through the work that he did that earned him a lot of money. So wealth would be a little bit more complicated, where maybe some of it happens to you and some of it is what you do. And then they talk about the fact that Zacchaeus is the chief tax collector, and the people grumble specifically because he's a sinner. And that's something that he was doing. That's a job that he did, that he decided to do, and he had probably some control over how he did it. And it seems that he did it in a way that was not terribly generous or full of grace and kindness to others. So anyway, we have these facts, these few facts that we know about Zacchaeus' life, not a lot. And then we hear that he pushed his way through the crowd and climbed a sycamore tree to see above the crowd. This was a detail that I always ignored, the fact that it was a sycamore tree. I grew up in western North Dakota, and we don't have or didn't have sycamore trees. I don't know if they have sycamore trees in Minnesota. Do they?
I haven't seen many.
No. Okay, so I've never seen one that I know of in person, but I was talking to a friend from Tennessee, and she said, have you ever thought about how hard it would be to climb a sycamore? Aren't they the smoothest trunked, hardest tree to climb? I did not know at the time. Like I said, I've still never touched one or seen one in person that I know of. But I Googled, so I did some research. This probably would not hold up to scholarly. So don't, in the Q&A section, I hope the gardeners don't come after me. But what I heard, well, as I understand it, sycamores shed their bark rapidly. So with most trees, like the trees that I'm used to, that I grew up around a lot, they've got the roughness of the bark. So if you're trying to climb them, there's something for your hands to grab onto, some friction there, so you can get a hold and climb up, and your feet can push against something and get a hold of something, and that's how you can actually get up the tree. But with a sycamore tree, apparently the bark just falls away if you try to grab it. So you reach up and it's like comes off in your hand and you're probably falling. If you put your foot against it, it just slides away. You can't get a hold. And so in the words of my friend from Tennessee, you gotta really want to climb a sycamore. So Zacchaeus climbed the sycamore tree, scurrying and slipping up that sheer smooth trunk until he got high enough to see Jesus. And he stopped. Jesus came to that tree. He stopped and he looked up and he said, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. Jesus invited himself to Zacchaeus' house. And Luke tells us that Zacchaeus hurried down and was happy to welcome him. The Greek here says it a little better, because when I say happy to welcome him, you might think of the kind of pleasant greeting I got last night at the Econo Lodge in Wisconsin Dells, where a friendly man welcomed me, and it seemed like he was probably the owner, and it was very well kept. But happy to welcome him here is closer to Zacchaeus hurried down and welcomed him rejoicing. So closer to the kind of greeting you would reserve for someone that you have been waiting for a long, long time. Someone whose very presence brings life and peace and promise. This was an honor. And Zacchaeus was a dishonorable man. He knew what people thought of him. the people, it says here, didn't they just shake their heads and murmur a little? I'm like, oh, there he is. It says that there's a sense here in the Greek, where the grumbles pick up steam and roll through the crowd. This Zacchaeus had cheated them. He dug right into their bank accounts and their pocketbooks and taken their money. And now Jesus was inviting himself to his house, and they were not happy about it. Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house because Zacchaeus too is a son of Abraham. And he says that because Zacchaeus steps into his invitation immediately. When Jesus invites himself to Zacchaeus' house, he renounces his wealth. He says he'll give away half of his possessions to the poor. And he resolves to never squeeze or shake down anyone again and to pay back fourfold anything that he's taken by fraud. Luke's gospel tells us that Jesus seeks out and saves the lost. And it tells us that even as we try to climb up that slippery tree to see Jesus from far away, because of all of the things in our life that might make it difficult to see Jesus down on the ground, Jesus sees us up there and says, you come down. I need to come to your house. It isn't those things that drove us up the tree that he's there for. He's there to come into our home, to invite himself into our lives. So often we look for ways to try to see Jesus from far away, impressive ways to see Jesus. We want to go up the tree, even though our hands can never quite grab a hold high enough and our feet can never keep a hold long enough. But Jesus is calling you by name. He wants to come into the heart of your life and rearrange everything. Hurry down, welcome him, and rejoice. Amen. We can take a few moments to meditate. And maybe as sort of our guiding question, we can think about what are the things that have made it difficult for you to see Jesus? And maybe what is the invitation that Jesus is yelling to you when you're looking for him from the treetop?